The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of Veilthorn's main square. Queen Morgana adjusted her black silk gloves, her pale eyes scanning the crowd gathered before the execution platform. The iron brazier beside it glowed with coals already turning white-hot, and the air was thick with the stench of burning oil and cold fear. "Bring forth the traitor," Morgana commanded, her voice ringing clear and precise, leaving no room for debate. From the stone tower emerged Sir Aldrich of Ravenspire, bound at the wrists in thick iron chains. His dark hair was matted with sweat and soot, a fresh bruise blooming along one cheekbone, but his stride held a dignity that drew murmurs from the gathered masses. Children once played games in the streets with wooden swords bearing his sigil, mothers told bedtime stories of his victories over the northern raiders. And now he was to die. "You stand accused of conspiring against the crown," Morgana said flatly as he was led to the stake. "Your penalty is death by fire." Aldrich lifted his head, steel-gray eyes fixed on her with a calm that defied the moment. "I have served you 10 years, your majesty. If loyalty is now treason, then your kingdom is already lost." Morgana's jaw clenched, but she gave no response. She nodded to the guards, and they began tying Aldrich to the charred post. Kindling and dry straw were piled at his feet. Somewhere beyond the crowd, a raven cawed. "Bring the witch." The second prisoner was dragged across the square, Mira, the healer. Her auburn hair was tangled, her face streaked with ash and sweat. She limped from a blow delivered during interrogation, her torn dress barely holding together at the seams. Yet, her green eyes burned brighter than any flame. "You practice dark arts," Morgana intoned. "You have used forbidden knowledge to defy the natural order." Mira lifted her chin. "I healed your people. Your advisor's son lived because of me. If that is a crime, then your justice is blind." Morgana motioned to the executioner, who brought forth the branding iron, twisted in the shape of a serpent, the mark of the unclean. Mira trembled, but made no sound. As the brand seared into her shoulder, the scream came anyway, a raw, involuntary thing that echoed across the square. Aldrich's eyes locked on hers through smoke and flame. And something ancient moved in the air. The wind, calm for days, suddenly shifted. Smoke swirled upward into the sky as if drawn by unseen hands. Sparks scattered into the air. The fire, meant to consume, twisted against its bindings and danced harmlessly to the side. Guards stumbled back. And then came the crash. The branding platform, rotten at its base, collapsed, and Mira vanished into the tunnels below. In the chaos, few noticed Aldrich jerk his wrists in a practiced motion, dislocating a thumb and freeing one hand from its loop. They thought his writhing was death throes, not strategy. Smoke clouded the square as he dropped, rolled, and disappeared into the shadows beneath the raised dais. Morgana stood still, trying to see through the smoke. Both prisoners were gone. "Find them," she hissed, but her voice held something it had not known in years. Fear. Aldrich awoke in darkness. Stone pressed against his back. Every breath tasted like copper and ash. The burns on his chest throbbed with every heartbeat. He groaned, shifting his weight. "You're awake." A gentle voice. "Mira." She moved toward him, a faint blue glow cupped in her hands, a tiny flame, perhaps, or something older, something less obedient to natural law. "I found you in the sewer runoff," she said. "You were barely breathing." He laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. "You saved me, witch." "I saved the night," she corrected, kneeling beside him. "Now lie still." She began to clean the burns, using cloths soaked in water and salves made from herbs she had gathered on their slow, painful journey through the tunnels. "We're in one of the old war chambers," she explained as she worked. "Abandoned since your father's time." "How do you know about it?" "I don't," she said. "I followed the rats. They always know where it's safe." He studied her face, the glow painting her cheekbones with soft gold. "You shouldn't have stayed." And let you die alone? She looked up, eyes flashing. No, if we're ghosts, then we haunt together. Over the following weeks, they built a life in the shadows. Mira tended Aldrich's wounds, and Aldrich taught her to listen, really listen, to the castle above. Footsteps, guard changes, the creak of gears in the hidden dumbwaiter that still functioned on rusted pulleys. They became phantoms. Each night brought whispers, plans, stolen food, careful maps drawn in charcoal. Aldrich fashioned crude weapons. Mira brewed teas to dull pain and sharpen clarity. But more than anything else, they found each other. Confined to the darkness, stripped of status, surrounded by betrayal, their shared survival created a tether stronger than loyalty. It was during a storm, 3 weeks after their fall, that the lines between survival and something more began to blur. Rain battered the stone above them. Mira, shivering in her threadbare dress, knelt to stoke the fire. Aldrich placed a blanket around her shoulders. You should be sleeping, she murmured. I can't. Not without knowing you're warm. Her hand found his, calloused fingers curling together. I thought I was dead, she said, voice cracking. I thought I'd never feel anything again. He pulled her closer. You're not dead. You're everything that's still alive in me. And then he kissed her. Not as a soldier, or a fugitive. But as a man who had lost everything and found the one soul who made the pain bearable. That night, beneath the castle that tried to kill them, they chose love over despair. And as dawn broke, unseen above the stone, 2 ghosts plotted the fall of a queen. Ghosts in the walls. 3 days after the storm, Aldrich knelt beneath the loose floorboards of the old war chamber, blade in hand, carving out the final lines of a crude tunnel map. Above him, the castle bustled with its oblivious routines, guards shuffled between shifts, kitchens clanged with breakfast preparations, and somewhere beyond stone and secrecy, Queen Morgana signed death warrants in elegant script. She replaced the steward again, Mira reported quietly as she returned from the upper tunnels, dust clinging to her sleeves. That's the 3rd in 2 months. No one lasts. She's surrounded by strangers now, too paranoid to keep the ones who know her well. Which means she's vulnerable, Aldrich replied, folding the parchment and slipping it into their satchel of plans. Fear makes people sloppy. Mira didn't answer right away. She was watching him, the tightness in his shoulders, the faint tremble in his scarred hands. His wounds had healed enough for movement, for planning, but not for peace. You didn't sleep again. I couldn't. The nightmares? He gave a single nod. Mira approached slowly, her fingers reaching to touch the twisted scar that ran from his jaw down his chest. You survived the flames, Aldrich. You survived her. But if you don't let yourself rest, I will rest when she's on her knees. The venom in his voice startled even him. Mira stepped back, her expression unreadable. I'm sorry, he said after a pause. But every time I close my eyes, I see her. I see the platform. I hear your scream. And yet here we are, she whispered, reaching again. This time, he didn't flinch. She took his hand and brought it to her chest. I'm real. Alive. We both are. And we have work to do. Their sanctuary grew in function and complexity. Aldrich had salvaged 2 broken swords, sharpening them nightly against stone. Mira built a small apothecary from stolen herbs and rotted glass vials. They took turns scouting the outer tunnels, noting which walls cracked under pressure, which ones echoed voices too clearly. They were preparing for something more than escape now. They were preparing for infiltration. There's a shift change in the east wing that leaves the southern stairs unguarded for nearly 8 minutes, Aldrich observed one night, drawing fresh marks onto a stolen tapestry. Enough time to slip into the records room. And what would we find there? Names, he said grimly. Servants. Guards. Allies, those who might remember who we were, what we stood for. Those who haven't been broken by Morgana's lies. Mira stirred the thin stew they shared each evening. You really think people still believe in you? He looked at her, solemn. I don't care if they believe. I care if they act. In the 5th week, Mira discovered a hidden passage behind a collapsed storeroom that led directly to the armory vault. There's a crack in the wall, she explained breathlessly after returning, wide enough to see through. I watched them rotate the key codes, for combinations every hour, but they repeat the sequence every 2 days. Aldrich grinned, the first true smile she'd seen in days. You're a miracle. I'm a rat, she laughed, a clever one, but still a rat. He pulled her into his arms, then we'll be rats who take back the castle. They built a list of potential sympathizers. Sergeant Edric, a veteran guard who once fought beside Aldrich. Old Mara, the laundress who had whispered warnings before the arrest. Young Tomas, the messenger boy who snuck pastries into the kitchens and never asked questions. They're quiet, Mira said. But not loyal to Morgana. I think they would help, if they believed we weren't ghosts. Then it's time they saw us, Aldrich declared. And so began the first tests. A note slipped into Edric's pocket during shift change. A healing salve left anonymously on Mara's cot. Tomas found a pouch of coins beneath his pillow with a message, the dead still watch. Rumors began to swirl. I heard the night still walks the halls at night, a stable boy whispered. The witch lights candles in the laundry room after dark, said another. The castle was stirring. And Morgana began to lose sleep. On the night of the solstice, Aldrich and Mira stood atop the highest hidden parapet they could reach, cloaked in shadow. Below, Veilthorn glimmered like a jeweled lie, clean, orderly, deceitful. Do you miss it? Mira asked, arms folded against the cold. The light, the courts, the way things were. No, Aldrich answered honestly. Because it was already rotten beneath the polish. We just didn't see it. She turned to him. So what do we build instead? If we win. If Morgana falls. Something better. Something honest. Something ours. She leaned into him. Then let's make them believe in ghosts. Masks of the living. Veilthorn Castle bustled with late autumn purpose. Preparations for the Harvest Festival turned its cold halls into scenes of painted illusion, festive ribbons strung across ancient stone, music echoing through corridors that had known only whispers and weeping for months. Queen Morgana had declared the celebration mandatory, an attempt to unify and distract her kingdom. The rumors, she claimed, were nonsense. Ghosts did not walk. And yet she checked the shadows often. The queen's mood is volatile, Mira whispered that morning as she adjusted the apron of her kitchen-maid disguise. She dismissed a steward mid-sentence yesterday. His only crime was stuttering. Aldrich, now known among the guards as Marcus the Mute, stood at the threshold of the old stable converted into a temporary armory. His shaved head glistened with sweat as he hauled a stack of dulled spears. The scars that laced his neck and jaw had earned him the nickname Iron Throat. She's unraveling, Aldrich replied without looking at her, paranoia makes bad rulers. Soon she'll be desperate for control, and that's when we make our move. You look tired, Mira said gently, so do you. Still think this is worth it? She asked. He finally turned, ask me again when she's choking on truth. It began with minor infiltrations. Edric, the veteran guard, passed along patrol changes. Mira whispered to the laundry maids where the queen kept her correspondence. Aldrich rewrote portions of the festival schedule, ensuring that key positions would be manned by men and women still loyal to honor. We can't move too fast, Mira cautioned as they sat by candlelight in the war chamber. She may suspect something already. That's why the masks matter. Masks? Us, Aldrich said. Marcus and Elena. The mute guard. The grieving servant. It's not just a disguise, it's a test of belief. You're asking them to forget who we were. I'm asking them to remember what we can become. The day before the festival, Mira was summoned to the Queen's private chambers. She bowed low, "Your Majesty." Queen Morgana sat by the arched window, staring at the fog that crept over the palace grounds. "Elena, come. Sit." Mira did so cautiously, keeping her hands folded in her lap. "You serve well," Morgana said without preamble. "You don't chatter. You don't flinch. And you do not ask foolish questions. I try to listen, Your Grace." Morgana's pale fingers toyed with the rim of her goblet. "Have you ever been betrayed, Elena?" "Yes." "By whom?" "Those who feared what they couldn't control." The Queen nodded as if she'd expected that answer. "Fear is useful. It reveals truths hidden beneath civility. But it also destroys trust. Then perhaps trust is overrated." Mira leaned forward, her voice soft. "Or perhaps it's the only thing that endures." Morgana looked at her sharply. "You are bold for a servant. You keep me close for a reason. Perhaps boldness is part of it." Morgana smiled faintly. "For the first time, it wasn't cruel. You may serve at my side during the festival. I want a watchful eye near me. Not a simpering fool." Mira bowed her head. "As you command." Below the castle, Aldrich studied the new shift schedules. "You'll be beside her the entire evening?" Mira nodded, unfastening the tight laces of her servant's gown. "She trusts me. Or rather, she trusts Elena. I think she's lonely." "Don't let it soften you," Aldrich warned, even as his hands moved to help her. "She's a serpent with a crown. And you're a ghost with a sword. I prefer shadow with a plan." They kissed then, slow and certain, grounding themselves before the storm. Later, as they lay wrapped together in the dark, Mira whispered, "What if she isn't as cold as she pretends? Then she's more dangerous than we imagined." The harvest festival arrived like thunder wrapped in silk. Minstrels paraded down marbled halls. Nobles adorned in seasonal colors danced beneath banners woven in gold thread. Laughter rang louder than truth, and wine flowed like the kingdom had never known drought, war, or fire. Queen Morgana stood at the heart of it all, resplendent, composed, and shadowed by her newest confidant, Elena. Mira moved through the room with quiet grace. She poured wine, whispered reassurances, laughed when required, but always, always watched. Aldrich stood at the great doors, dressed in the uniform of the royal guard. His hand rested on his sword's pommel, his eyes scanning the room. The stage was set. Soon, the ghosts would speak. Dance of daggers. Valethorn Castle shimmered like a blade in moonlight. The harvest moon had risen, swollen and red, casting elongated shadows across the marble floors and tapestry-lined corridors. Laughter echoed through the great hall, but beneath the music, a different rhythm pulsed, the slow, steady beat of treachery long in the making. Mira stood behind Queen Morgana's throne, her eyes scanning the hall like a predator's. The queen, resplendent in midnight blue velvet and a diamond-stitched collar, seemed calm. But Mira could feel the tension coiled in her every movement. "They're watching me," Morgana murmured, not turning her head. "They always do, Your Grace," Mira replied smoothly. "You are their North Star. Or their executioner. Sometimes it's hard to tell." Meanwhile, Aldrich, still wearing the guise of Marcus the Mute, stood at the eastern archway, arms folded across his chest. From his vantage point, he saw everything: Lord Cases whispering too urgently to a foreign emissary, Sergeant Edric patrolling twice in 1 hour instead of once, and Queen Morgana's left hand unconsciously twitching toward the dagger at her hip every time someone walked too close. "It begins tonight," Aldrich thought. Not the final move. But the first open strike. As the feast unfolded, the tension beneath the surface sharpened. Rumors of disappearances had spread across the castle in the last week: minor officials, 2 stable hands, a mid-level clerk. All gone. Quietly replaced. Lord Cases sipped dark wine and leaned close to Morgana. "The new guard rotation has been enacted. The ones you distrusted are no longer assigned to your wing. Morgana nodded once. And the girl? Elena? Utterly ordinary. Likely too frightened to betray you. Mira felt a flicker of irony. She was the most dangerous person in the room, and they had dismissed her entirely. Across the hall, Aldrich's eyes met hers. She gave a single nod. A signal was sent, a ring adjusted, a flick of a curtain cord, a servant who dropped a goblet at precisely the right moment. A chain reaction began. Edric slipped a scroll into the seam behind a statue. Tomas the runner collected it minutes later and vanished into the garden. Old Mara began coughing, drawing attention away from the kitchen entrance just long enough for Mira to pass through with a sealed pouch tucked in her apron. The ghost network breathes, Aldrich thought. Morgana stood to make her festival address. The room quieted as she raised her goblet. To harvest, she began. To the fruits of loyalty, and the cutting away of rot. Some clapped. Others looked confused. Aldrich knew then, she suspected something. Bring me the mute guard, Morgana commanded suddenly. The room stilled. Aldrich stepped forward, bowing his head low. His pulse pounded. You've been in my service 3 months now, Morgana said slowly, descending the dais. Yet you've never spoken. Do you understand me? He nodded. Take off your helmet. Mira's heart stopped. Aldrich obeyed. Scars. Shaved head. Unfamiliar beard. Morgana studied him. You're a ghost, she whispered. I've seen you in dreams. Aldrich held her gaze. Still silent. She stepped closer, searching his face. Then, she smiled. It was thin. Brittle. Perhaps I see too many shadows, she murmured, turning away. He exhaled slowly, the moment passed. But the fire had been lit. That night, in the chamber below, Mira slammed her hands on the table. She knows. She may not admit it aloud, but she felt something. Aldrich leaned over the table, scanning the new maps. Then we accelerate. We trigger phase 2 at the equinox. That's 9 days. We can't wait longer. If Morgana starts purging again, we'll lose the people we need. They stood in silence. Then Aldrich reached out. We'll do it together. We always have. Mira stepped into his arms. I won't let her take you again. And I won't lose you to pity for her. She's a tyrant. No dream softens that. But Mira's expression darkened. You haven't seen what I have. Behind that crown, there's a woman who's breaking. Not because of us. Because of what she became. Then let her break, Aldrich growled. Let her fall with the weight of every life she crushed. 2 days later, Morgana stood alone in her private garden, cloaked against the evening chill. Elena, she said as Mira approached. Do you believe in redemption? Yes, Mira answered honestly. Do you think all crimes can be forgiven? No, but some people can learn. If they choose to. Morgana turned, her expression unreadable. If you were queen, would you burn traitors? Mira met her gaze without flinching. I would listen to them first. Ask why they turned. Then decide. Morgana nodded slowly. Perhaps I have forgotten how to ask why. That night, Aldrich sat awake long after Mira slept, his sword unsheathed beside him. This ends soon, he thought. And when it does, there will be no more masks. The throne and the reckoning. The equinox arrived cloaked in grey clouds and winds that howled like the voices of the dead. In Valethorn, the sun did not rise. Instead, it simmered behind thick sky, casting no warmth, only pale illumination upon the ancient stones of the castle. Within those walls, betrayal stirred. Today, Aldrich said quietly, strapping the blade to his back, the ghost stop hiding. Mira nodded, her cloak already fastened, her fingers wrapping a vial of night root, a sedative strong enough to drop a man twice her size. They think we are shadows. Let them learn what it means when shadows strike. It began at midday. The guards' hall doors slammed open as Aldrich strode inside. Edric rose to his feet instantly. The others paused, uncertain. On your feet, Aldrich said, no longer playing the mute. Valethorn has rotted from within. Those who serve justice, follow me. The rest, run. 6 guards joined him. 3 fled. Mira moved like a whisper through the Queen's private wing. Her face calm, her eyes set. She found Lord Cases in the war chamber, fingers stained with ink as he forged a message to Northern allies. You, he sneered. The kitchen ghost. The Queen's ghost, she said, and hurled the vial at his feet. It shattered. He stumbled back, coughing. She walked past him, leaving him clawing at his throat. In the throne room, Morgana sat beneath stained glass, the sword of state beside her. When Aldrich entered, the chamber emptied. Just the 2 of them remained. So it's true, she said. You are the ghost in my halls. No, Aldrich replied, I'm the reckoning you birthed. You were loyal. And you were just. Once. Until fear hollowed you. She rose. Will you kill me? No, he said. Mira stepped in behind him. We'll let the people decide. Morgana looked at her. Her voice cracked. I trusted you. And you burned me for it. The trial was held in the square where once fire had licked at Aldrich's boots. Morgana stood, unbound, before a crowd of thousands. Mira and Aldrich flanked her. The people listened as testimonies were read. Names of the executed. The silenced. The forgotten. Morgana did not protest. When asked to speak, she said only, I ruled out of fear. And fear is a coward's crown. In the end, the people chose exile. The Queen was sent north, to the monastery ruins, to live among the cold winds and silence she had created. Weeks passed. The throne sat empty. You should take it, Edric said to Aldrich. No, he replied. My place is not above others. It's beside them. Then you, he said to Mira. She shook her head. The best rulers are those who don't want the crown. So what now? We rebuild, Aldrich said. We remember, Mira added. And we listen. In the depths of Valethorn, beneath banners once soaked in blood, Mira and Aldrich walked the same halls where they'd once hidden. Now, children ran there. Now, laughter echoed. No more ghosts. Just memory, and love that had outlasted the fire.